Welcome to the Week in Italian Startup, where we discuss the latest highlights happening in the Italian tech and investment ecosystem. Last week has been pretty intense in terms of volumes, I would say. So let's jump right into that. So Newcleo raising about 300 million euro to continue working on its innovative nuclear reactor technology. So that's probably the biggest news of the week, I would say. And I mean, compared to any other raise, whenever Newcleo is involved, everything pales up. So
yeah, but again, that's the kind of business that requires billions. So we are basically seeing seed rounds that are used to try to validate the initial stages of the technology, and we'll see further rounds down the road the next few years. It take time. I mean, Newcleo is not really a startup in the most classical sense, but I can't refrain from talking about it in the newsletter, because this technology is something that might have a huge impact on our society, and considering what's going on nowadays with energy in particular,
definitely relevant, absolutely relevant. I agree.
Definitely relevant, exactly. So let's talk about it. And
yeah,
I think they opened and closed the round in just a few months.
I think it was 3 months. In 3 months, this guy managed to raise that. I don't think there is much information about the investors in this round. It's kept pretty private, I would say. But yeah, as you say, not traditional, probably not traditional VC, not the traditional sort of press release way of thinking about promoting raising. So it's very straight to the point. Probably also big corporation, probably some maybe institutional investor, maybe related with state authorities, I would imagine. I was reading that probably they're gonna open also location in UK and France, and they have some contractors on some of their technology, especially from France. So my guess is that there is a mixture of that for sure. So
and I believe it doesn't surprise me 100% that the list of investors is kept private. I mean, consider the type of technology that's kind of it tends to bias people. So reason strong in favors, strong against. So maybe there are also players and investors that are not willing to be listed on the web page as investors in the nuclear reactor project. So maybe privacy is a feature of this type of investments. So you really need it.
And I think what is interesting, is that basically, just to dig a little deeper on the kind of product they're trying to develop, it's mostly 2 phases. So if we check out essentially the website, essentially what they're doing is really trying to reinvent nuclear reactors and developing generation 4 reactors. So of course, I did my quick research, and this is interesting actually. It's another rabbit hole, because so generation 1 reactor back in the 50s are the first prototypes that have been produced, not on a commercial scale, surprisingly, in the US, and there is only a couple of examples. With generation 2 reactors, that's really when they got commercialized, and most of generation 2 reactor are the ones that are currently employed in most of the nuclear sites. That's very interesting. I mean, the unfamous one are the Fukushima one. It was a generation 2. Chernobyl was a generation 2. Of course, back generation 2 just means the one develops from early 60s back to the 80s. So it's a gap. Then there's been a few iterations, essentially generation 2+ up until 3, and mostly is an improvement in safety and way of cooling, efficiency of the energy production. So there are deep tweaks that have been made up to generation 4, which is essentially the cutting edge technology of reactor. And in this case, they're trying to essentially use what is defined as MOX, which is the byproduct of the refinement of plutonium and uranium. So it's a mixed plutonium-uranium oxide. And essentially the goal is really to make it as clean as possible and as sort of self feeding as possible in all the uranium and plutonium supply chain. So that's quite something.
So there is a strong change in the fuel that they're going to use. So this is the basic change. Am I getting it right? Okay, interesting.
That's correct. Now there is also generation 5, which is coming up, but apparently it's only theoretical. So we're talking about science fiction, but I thought it was interesting to mention. Going back to Newcleo, I think what is interesting is actually the roadmap, which is extremely interesting and kind of brings in all the work of Nobel Prize winner Carlo Robbia, which actually is the mentor of Stefano Buono, the CEO and founder of Newcleo. So it's really a lifetime project with like big long-term consequences and a deep research and in the field. So the idea is really to start with a prototype in the next 5 years. And basically what they're pushing is not only the reactor production itself, the reactor manufacturing and prototyping, but also a facility that produces MOX, so the fuel. So it's a kind of it's a parallel play. So they both are looking into the production facility and technology and the reactor manufacturing and prototyping. So that's really the two lines where they're going to develop their product. So 5 years, there's going to be the first sort of iteration. 7 to 10 years is going to be the mini lead-cooled fast reactor with 30 megawatt, and a megawatt is 1 million watt for the ignorant like me that don't know much about these things. And then scaling it up essentially to 200, still considered small, but then peaking to what they call ADS, accelerator driven system, which is the concept that Robbia was the one proposing essentially, which is a different kind of fuel, more efficient, thorium based. So whatever that means, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know. I'm sure it's probably the highest level of self-generation, circularity, and safety. So that's really the end goal of the game. So I thought it was particularly relevant and interesting.
Yeah, in that sentence, the two words that hits me are particle accelerator. What the heck?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
The cool fast reactor is coupled with a particle accelerator. Okay.
Yeah, you know, the usual thing. It's just a subcritical LFR coupled with a particle accelerator. Nico.
Yeah, whatever that is, but
normal thing. That's true. That's very impressive. And probably it's on the sort of impulse to make maybe like a particle accelerator like more commercialized in a way, I would say, exactly like a nuclear reactor were back in the 60s and 50s. So that's the next generation of electricity, of the cleanest of electricity production mechanism. Very interesting. Fascinating. Yep. That's a rabbit hole right here. Awesome. All right, moving on.
Yeah, let's go back to the boring startup world.
Back to the digital startup world happening in Italy. So 2.6 million euro round by Serenis. Very interesting play. Founder is one of the rock star, I would say, of Italy, Silvia Wang, already founder of Pronto Pro, which is a company that essentially provides access to professionals through a platform. So they're trying to do the same, but specifically meant for mental wellness practitioner and connected them with patients that might need help with mental with therapy, I would say.
Yeah, so mental support.
Yeah.
2.6 million, not a tiny round. I have to admit I haven't searched very thoroughly, but I couldn't find whether there was a lead investor or any professional investor. I believe there were quite a few business angels, also high-profile business angels.
I agree.
Around. We know that a co-founder is joining.
Yeah.
the person I don't know, but high profile, Daniele Francescon.
Yeah.
A founder and head of growth of NEN. Yep.
Yeah.
So another person with knows how to scale a retail startup.
Yeah.
Very interesting. 60,000
Yeah, I mean,
guests since September 2021.
Absolutely. No, great founder. And this is like basically it's an awesome team. It's a repeat founder team, which is I mean, not a certainty, but it's a high level of success post probability, I would say. Well, and that's kind of confirmed by the request. So market is really responding extremely well. The company was born in 2021, and that's already 60,000 subscribers. So that's definitely interesting. Yeah, in terms of
Interesting vertical. Yeah, but please go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, in terms of investor, I agree with you. I didn't find the sort of the more known investor. It's there is this company FG2 Capital, which there are like only the Instagram profile, I would say, which is basically they've been investing along like other investor, I would say, and I think some of the founder really work extremely well on the secondary markets, so they really kind of have a very good eye in terms of deals. So shout out to them, definitely interesting player, and hopefully some new people in the venture space. So yeah. So online therapy, Nick, what do you think of that? I mean, it's
no, I was considering that this is something that consider the numbers, not just those of Serenis, but there are other startups operating in the space, like Uno Bravo, to name another one, and they have crazy numbers, crazy growth. So it seems that it looks to me that online is the perfect channel for this type of medical support, health support. So personal wellness, so some psychology support. It seems that somehow it's something that people wanted, and I'm surprised that it took so long to get to startups offering that type of service in the market. So it's 2022, and the first examples were probably from 2020. So interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, technically, this is something that, therapy could have been done from the phone since the invention of the telephone, probably in some way or another. But maybe because, video calling technologies, improvements, like a more seamless experience of talking with other humans. Distancing, of course, probably had a huge impact. So that all these variables probably made the ground extremely fertile. So it is probably the right moment for that. I agree. So that's
a very good comment. Yeah, I agree. You're right.
Yeah, that's the future of psychology, probably. I mean, that's how you scale your psychology practice, and that's awesome, because that's something that other profession cannot do. Think of dentists. I mean, I cannot get my cavity fixed through Zoom, and
I totally agree with you. In the same, psychology is probably the strongest branch of medicine right now in terms of disruption from digital. I mean, almost everything in the medical sector is based on big data.
Yeah.
So knowledge based on big data and research. So a lot of branches of the medical world are going to be disrupted by technology, by changing the way it will work in the future, probably. But psychology is very positively somehow impacted by technology, because
totally.
It's about conversation, it's about relationship, and it seems that now technology is bridging people, and it's nice.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe there is a space for like basic care or something, sort of, the initial relationship and approach with a doctor whenever, there has been experiment like that. I don't know.
And I'm probably going to not being able to reach a doctor anymore in the future, if anybody's listening. But I've got this feeling that most roles in the medical profession will become customer relationship roles.
Good point.
This impression, but because the rest will be, a conglomerate of computers can crunch data much better than single humans. So I believe
last time we were talking about how surgeon might be replaced by engineers. Now is like a psychologist over video calls and maybe the metaverse. And
but about psychologists are in a very perfect position because they currently are in a customer relationship role. So they are interacting with their customers. So the interaction is the medical product. But it's not so in all the other. That's not the same in all the other relationship with a doctor.
So true.
So I don't know. After this, probably I will not be able to find a doctor. Yes. Well, then please, ask your computer. Okay.
There you go. Send an email. Fantastic. Awesome. Talking about post-pandemic world, let's talk about Meters. Meters is a great platform that essentially is reviving all the community meetings. They raised 2.4 million euro with CDP Venture SGR also participating. Great founders also. I know Francesco, very driven founder. He's been like active in the startup world for a very long time, and they've been doing great in the sense that they're targeting a very specific audience. They really work a lot on matching the right people all together and providing this like custom-made experience. And so they're having like a great traction. So that's an awesome way to kind of reconnect in a meaningful way with people.
Yeah, no, nothing to add here. This round is an extension of the previous one raised by the startup a few months ago on crowdfunding, I believe.
Yes.
And this time the $500,000 were invested by CDP Venture Capital. There they are with the relaunch fund.
Yeah. And our friend from Azimuth also are part of the investor rooster, of course, through the LTIF, AliCrowd, which is obviously an offshoot of Mama Crowd. So there is this relationship, and also we have celebrity investors. So Giorgio Chiellini, which doesn't hurt. I'm sure it definitely brings like a very good marketing.
I believe Chiellini is building up an interesting startup portfolio. So he's not the only investment he's made, but there are quite a few.
So bringing back the idea of celebrity VCs, like legit celebrities VCs, maybe he can be one of our candidates, Giorgio Chiellini, in Italy.
Yeah, I agree with you. In this case, it looks like he's doing the right cherry picking.
Interesting.
So that's interesting.
Awesome. Right, moving on. Let's talk about GrowishPay. GrowishPay is a very interesting business model. So it's BaaS, so banking as a service. Essentially, they're providing the backend of a ton of different financial services that banks, digital payment startup, marketplace offer. And so they do these services as a white label. So it's a very interesting and particular business model. They've been managing to raise 850k euro, which was used specifically actually to acquire SchoolPay. ScuolaPay, sorry. Yeah, ScuolaPay.
School mission actually. ScuolaPay, that's more complicated. I mean, ScuolaPay is a product of GrowishPay. So they basically verticalized.
Sorry, you're right. Yeah, my mistake.
There are school mission, SchoolPay, GrowishPay, school.
Exactly.
It's all very complicated. But it's interesting because what they're doing is basically they created this. So the banking as a service is a pivot of the original idea of GrowishPay, and then they verticalized. They themselves verticalized the banking as a service in the school sector by creating this fintech offering, vertical fintech offering for the school ecosystem, from paying for the books and things for school to offering dedicated banking services to students. So it's basically a very vertical fintech for kids.
Yeah.
For people going to school.
I think it's powerful. I think it's very powerful because it simplifies probably a lot of like other platforms that are not well fitted for that specific ecosystem. So school, traditionally in Italy, we're not as digital as we wish. So especially school management, unfortunately, they need to kind of catch up a lot with technology, and having a very simple and direct product made for them, that's absolutely powerful. Instead of having like a multifunctional, high-level payment system that is an overkill for them.
Yep, I agree with you. This is one of the historical moments where apparently the vertical something is king. So verticalizing a service in order to be the one-stop shop for a specific niche or segment of users, without having other players having to be adopted by the user. That's an interesting take. The school sector is not small, so there's not much around there. So
exactly, I don't know how much transaction that can happen overall for schools. I don't think it's a huge market, but probably is a solid, repetitive, constant, and profitable in the end, I would say. And especially if there's no other platform doing that, that's a very interesting way to enter a solid market. There you go.
I think having a kid going to school would help to the budget, daily budget for everything related.
Yeah.
But I don't. So I don't know. But probably not a big ticket. So, I mean, fees, special payments, trips, of course, books and stuff, and that services related to school and so forth. So
but it's enough. I mean, if that's simple and the school management can really, use it seamlessly, it's a no-brainer. It's interesting. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Let's talk about Silver Lake. So Silver Lake, behemoth investment firm, acquiring essentially a majority stake in Facile.it. That's interesting. So they got the majority stake from two different private equity firms, EQT and Newcleo Capital. It would be curious actually to see how things are going to change or not, maybe. So that's interesting. I mean, Silver Lake is huge. It has about 88 billion under management, active since early 2000 and end of the 90s, early 2000. If you look at the portfolio, it is impressive. I mean, everything: Airbnb, Airtable, Carta. A lot, really a lot of very like staple name that are still extremely thriving like today. So that's pretty cool, and across different verticals too.
Yep, that's so the question you're asking is quite interesting. So what's going to happen to Facile.it? So from the press release, the official press release, that's saying that Facile.it has become the second Italian unicorn.
Good point.
That's interesting because it's a unicorn on the secondary transaction, not a direct investment, as far as I can understand. And I wonder what they're going to do. I mean, prepare the company for an IPO. Well, probably not in the short term, not in this market, but who knows? I don't know. It would be interesting to see what's next for Facile.it.
Awesome.
The company in 2021 generated approximately 140 million in revenue.
Yes.
Not too shabby.
Not too bad. I think the power part is this: the 4 million customer every month that compare prices. That's extremely powerful. So the revenue, I don't think is surprising particularly, I would say, but the turnover of user using the platform, that's absolutely impressive.
No, they tell a lot. 4 million a month.
Yeah, that's huge. Very interesting. Awesome. All right. Now let's switch to
just today on the M&A part. We probably need to shout out to Will Media for the acquisition by Chora Media. Not a huge transaction of 5.2 million. If you evaluate on the community, I believe Will Media has 1 point something million user in its community. So the metric is interesting. Will Media was a startup that raised 1.2 million a couple of years ago, I believe, between 2019 and 2020. There was some, troubled waters actually right after the investment, because one of the founders had to leave after some problems. But apparently it lived on, and they found a new place in Chora Media.
Beautiful, great story. I mean,
that's a new media company focused on live media, digital content, so podcasts, and so forth. So we should probably pitch them for.
Yeah, I know. Fantastic. Beautiful. Awesome. Let's move to some of the protagonists of this podcast, Banca Sella, that has been very active in different space, and now I think last week kind of surprised a bit everyone in launching this very specific Metaverse Accelerator. So it's an accelerator focused on financing the Metaverse. So it's not just Metaverse, but it's specifically it's a vertical of a vertical. So it's a meta level of a vertical. I thought it was very interesting.
Well, it's nice. Sometimes you try to move faster than what everybody's talking about. So everybody's still stuck with the metaverse.
Yeah,
it's nice to try to look after it or beyond it.
Absolutely.
About vertical services related to finance for the metaverse.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's gonna be interesting. I mean, Sella is a bank offering a lot of technology in the fintech space, so it makes absolute sense. And I have to mention that the program will be run by the Pixel, which is a former company and a friend of Leone Ventures. So absolutely great team. So very happy with them for this project. It's gonna be interesting. I'm curious about who's gonna graduate from this project.
Yeah, so it's a 6-month program with 4 phases, starting from scouting and selection, and pretty much ending up with the 5 finalist startups receiving 100K each. That then will be used to scale the company and then match them with other operators in the industry. So I thought it was a very
the metaverse industry. That's interesting.
Awesome. Yeah.
Great.
I agree. It's funny that they're of course, the metaverse is happening. So let's just go on and move along. Let's go beyond. Yeah, I like that.
Smart move.
All right. Let's talk about our friend Doug Leone or Doug Leone. How do you pronounce his name when he's in Genova?
I have no idea.
Very funny. So startup.
He was born in Italy, right? So he was born and grew up in Italy. So
yeah, his family is originally from Liguria, from Genova. I think he moved. I don't know if he was born first generation American or if he moved when he was really small. But he remains one of the big VC rock stars of forever. I mean, that's definitely founder of Sequoia. And someone that really invested in some of the best tech that happened in the history of tech. And he's kind of giving Startup Italia some interesting take on what Italy should do. So the first thing that he says is that we're kind of a little bit behind compared to France, Germany, and the UK. Fine, fair enough. I agree with that. But then he's just take a very quick twist and being extremely clear, saying, look, you need STEM engineers. Ingredient number 1. Ingredient number 2 is really focusing on future verticals, which is artificial intelligence, Web3, robotics, and clean energy. This is it. This is a recipe from the 3-star chef, VC chef, Doug Leone.
Yeah, and just one deal of the week out of the 4 that we had is in one of these areas. So there is a mismatch.
Yeah, awesome. I want to last mention what is happening with Google, which you mentioned. I think it was particularly cool. So Google is opening what is called the cloud region. So essentially in Milan, there's going to be 2 cloud regions. Google have been opening those kind of region all across the world. And essentially what a cloud region is a specific location where companies can find a certain kind of services in virtue of the fact that the whole infrastructure is capable of catering high-speed internet, good data security, and a lot of different products that Google can offer. And it is interesting because in the Google website, if you look into Google Cloud, you can really see where you can find certain product instead of other. Of course, Google offers products that are widely used, from Data Studio to Data Lab to Cloud DNS, etc. But certain ones are only offered through this zone, and mostly they're related probably with a higher level cloud product and services, so including Kubernetes engines. That's an interesting way to conquer the world, I believe.
Well, when you look at these up to a point, if you and I are setting up a startup and buying some Google services, probably nothing will change.
Yes.
But there are important topics to consider when selecting an area, because the area is a physical location for services. So proximity to your customers, also the physical location of the region is important for legal aspects.
Good point.
With GDPR compliant, you would probably not choose an American location, because then data would be hosted there. So there are a lot of things to consider, and having 2 regions in Italy is a commercial move that's pretty smart, pretty interesting actually. It means that Google is doubling down on Italy. Hopefully they're looking, past the current situation and expect the country to grow a lot, or faster than others. So,
no, totally.
Let's hope they're right.
Yeah, no, totally. And no, I like the take on the legal aspect. I didn't think about it. It's actually like probably primary compared to like product. The product, yeah, you're right. I mean, you can pretty much now take advantage of most of the services kind of anywhere in the world. But from a legal standpoint, there is like a further competition.
You know where your data is, and there are a lot of stuff going around. So.
Great point. All right, Nick, thank you for joining. It was an awesome conversation, and I'll see you next week.
Ciao, Jack. Have a great week. See you everybody next week. Ciao.